Dear friends, tonight in Meretz Hashem we have the incredible Zuchos to begin the third day of Hanukkah. And in the world of miracles, we often have two different types of miracles, a concept that we've discussed many times in the past. We have utilitarian miracles, miracles that HaKadosh Baruch Hu performs in order to remedy a particular need. So for example, when our ancestors left Egypt, we're running away from the Egyptians are pursuing us, we get to the banks of the Red Sea, and there in front of us is a body of water, behind us are our former Egyptian oppressors, and so HaKadosh Baruch Hu splits the sea so that we could go through and brings down the waves crashing back down on the Egyptians, bringing an end to Egyptian tyranny over the Jewish people. Similarly, we get to the deserts, and there are 3.5 million people there in the desert. There's no food. HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings about the man in order to be able to sustain his children. So certain miracles that we understand, they're miraculous, they're incredible, but I also absolutely understand why HaKadosh Baruch Hu did it. And then we have other types of miracles where they're beautiful, they're wonderful, but the truth is we would have been just fine without it. And perhaps the paradigmatic example of that is the Pach Shemen, is a little cruse of oil. After all, again, as incredible as it is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu caused a little jug of oil that should have only remained lit for 1 day to burn for 8 days, and if it wouldn't have happened, we would have been fine. Right? In other words, even without getting into all the technicalities, like the commentaries in the Gemara point out, technically they could have even used impure oil, because again, tumah hutra, b'tzibur ritual impurity is permitted in a congregational setting. And again, even if they didn't have oil, the whole Beis HaMikdash was in a state of disrepair. Klal Yisrael was in a state of disrepair. The menorah hadn't been kindled for years beforehand. So if it would have taken another 8 days to be able to kindle the menorah, so be it. So the miracle of the Pach Shemen wasn't necessary. So if it's not a necessary utilitarian miracle, it means that it's a message miracle. It means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is trying to teach us something, convey something to us. So what is the message? And the Ger Rebbe, the Sfas Emes, says something so beautiful. He says, you know what the message is? The message is how important our mitzvos are to Hashem. That when I perform mitzvos, we perform mitzvos, HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu enjoys it. And it's the most important thing to the Ribono Shel Olam. You know, sometimes when we observe our Yiddishkeit, when we perform mitzvos, so we do it. Why do we do it? People do it for all different reasons, right? Some people do it out of a sense of mission or duty. Others do it because they want to avoid punishment. Others do it because it's the mimetic tradition. It's what my ancestors did, my parents, my grandparents. So it's what I'm going to do as well. But kind of deep down within our religious psyche, we often wonder to ourselves, does this really matter? Does this really matter? I put on tefillin today, don't put on tefillin today. What? The sun's not going to come up tomorrow? Keep Shabbos, don't keep Shabbos, or keep Shabbos as I should. Do these things matter? I'm careful with Lashon Hara, not as careful with Lashon Hara. At the end of the day, I'm going to do it. Don't get me wrong, I'm doing it regardless. But I often wonder to myself, does it actually matter? And the Sfas Emes says the answer to that question is a resounding yes. And what's the proof? The proof is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu performed the miracle with the oil. Why did Hashem allow the jug of oil to remain lit for 8 days? For one simple reason. So that our ancestors, the Hashmonaim, the Maccabim, could perform a mitzvah. The laws of nature were changed so that Jews could perform a mitzvah. The teva was suspended so that Jews could perform a mitzvah. The miracle of the Pach Shemen did not go ahead and in any way address the physical plight or material circumstances of the Jew. There was still difficulty, there was still suffering, there was still death, there were still overwhelming challenges that we faced. So why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu perform the miracle? To show us that our mitzvos matter. Our mitzvos matter. What we do makes a difference. And most importantly, what we do matters to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'll give you the mashal sometimes. Like if a person is blessed with children. So sometimes your children, when they're young, will come home from school with a project. And you look at the project and you say to yourself, you know what, if somebody from the street, if you were to go over to an unbiased third party, say, tell me, what is the value of this masterpiece that my child just created, right? In kindergarten, right? In nursery, in first grade, what's the value? So the person, value, you couldn't pay me to take that, right? It's an objective piece of junk, right? It has no value. But to me as the parent, it has all the value in the world. Mommy is spelled with W's instead of M's, right? It's the upside down M, and daddy has a backwards D, or whatever you are. right? It doesn't. It's not coherent. The coloring is out of the lines. Nothing's coming together. But as a parent, it's the most beautiful thing in the world. So sometimes our mitzvos may not be perfect. Maybe our mitzvos are not as they should be. Maybe I'm not davening the way that I should. I'm not learning the way that I should. I'm not doing my mitzvos the way that I should. Maybe it's possible. But just know, even when you're coloring out of the spiritual lines, HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu waits for it. He yearns for it. He pines for it. And says this Vasemes, I'll give you a proof. He performed the miracle of Hanukkah for one purpose and one purpose only, to show us how much He loves our mitzvos. This, says this Vasemes, is the message of the Pach Shemen, the message of the jug of oil, the message of Hanukkah. Our mitzvos matter. And even if we're not doing them as well as we could or should be, even if, again, we're coloring outside of the religious lines, know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves it every single time we reach out to Him. Know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves it every single time we push ourselves to perform a mitzvah. Know that in the eyes of the Ribono Shel Olam, our mitzvos matter. Wishing everyone a lichtige Chanukah.